All right. Hi, buddy. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Marvel Reread Club. So, Steve, how are you?
Best I can, given the circumstances these days. But last week, we did spend the week in Florida, and we visited the new Universal Epic Universe theme park, which was quite good. We enjoyed ourselves very much. And other than that, just took a day trip down to visit an old friend of Amy's in Punta Gorda, and then just relaxed and used the heated pools and hot tubs and all that sort of stuff. So that was good. Meanwhile, we are, I just discovered yesterday that they are now predicting now this is 5 days out, 5 or 6 days out. So I doubt this will actually happen as they're predicting, but they're predicting like 15 inches of snow for us this weekend, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
I think in the times we lived here, we used to get snow more frequently than we do now. And we would sometimes get double-digit inches, but, not closer to 20 than to 10, which is what it sounds like they're talking about this time. So I strongly suspect that they will be revising that downward at some point here, but we will see. How about yourself?
We've got some snow on the ground, and it is going to be negative degrees every day for the next 10 days. So it is quite cold up here in Evanston, Illinois, where I live. But, oh well, we are doing our best. My son walks to school every day, and he walks with another boy, and that boy is a postman's son of a mail carrier. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I've got to give Jack a ride. It's 2 degrees outside. And then I give the postal carrier's son a ride too, and the postal carrier is like, gets upset. And he's like, no, neither snow nor rain nor dark of night. It's still at least 2 degrees outside. I don't want my son to have a ride to school. And I'm always like, look, I understand, but I'm giving my son a ride to school. I know that you have postal carrier issues here, but I'm always worried I'm going to get him in trouble by giving him rides. Anyway, yes, I am keeping very busy here in Evanston, Illinois with annoying things. My computer, my photos library died, and we were unable to rescue the photos. And then finally we were able to rescue the photos, but not which ones were the favorites, and not any edits we had ever done to the photos, which was very sad. And we're trying to back up to the cloud, which it's saying is now going to start charging me $9.99 a month instead of $3.99 a month, which is super annoying. And, I'm the sort of person who, whenever a monthly charge comes in, I start doing the math in my head and going like, okay, so over the next 50 years, this $9.99 a month, well, that's what you have to do. If you're paying for, a place to store your photos, I could live another 50 years and that charge is never going to go away. It's only going to go up. So I'm like, all right, if I'm paying $9.99 a month, that means over the next 50 years, I'm paying $10,000 or whatever. And I'm like, that's a big expense. It's super annoying. Meanwhile, I've been dealing with the hassle of doing something that has to do with this podcast. I've been dealing with the hassle of trying to sell all my comics. The first comic book store that I went to, the guys seemed super nice and super friendly. And then they came out and they offered me a super insulting offer. And I was like, oh, okay, well, either this is just going to be what happens everywhere, or I just have to come across some guys with an extreme set of cojones on them. And it seems to be the latter. I have had much better interactions with some other comic book store clerks at some other stores. Someone is coming out to appraise the collection on Friday, and he seems like he is much more serious in terms of what he is prepared to spend. So I just started off with the wrong guys. This guy was saying all the right things as opposed to they, who in retrospect were saying all the wrong things.
All right. Well, best of luck getting that taken care of, and I hope that you end up being happy with your situation there. So I guess it is time for us to talk about some comics.
Yes, let's talk about some comics. Let's try to finish this up. So I read these comics and took notes on them 5 weeks ago, I want to say, because we took a week off unexpectedly last week. So I hope that you guys all managed to make it through the week without your normal Marvel Comics Reread Club fix. But we are back, and we are finally going to finish up the month of August 1968 with 4 books today. We are going to handle Captain Marvel, Iron Man. I know you're saying, like, oh, I'm so excited, Captain Marvel and Iron Man. but also a really good issue of Avengers, and most importantly, Silver Surfer #1, a double-sized book. So we are going to tackle all these today. Which one do you want to start with, Steve? What should we do first?
Well, I've got Captain Marvel pulled up on my thing, so let's go ahead and do Captain Marvel.
Start off with a bang. Captain Marvel. All right. Who's covering Captain Marvel?
I can go ahead and do Captain Marvel, I guess. So,
okay.
First, on the cover, enter the Submariner, and we see the two of them fighting. Looks like they just burst out of the water with Captain Marvel's little jets going, and they are in combat. On the inside, Marvel's space-born superhero, Captain Marvel, the alien and the amphibian. 3 worlds collide in a triple threat tale by Stan Lee editor, Roy Thomas writer, and Gene Colan artist. Inked by Vince Colletta, lettered by I. Watanabe. We start off with Captain Marvel, what's the word? Not soliloquizing, but...
contemplating? I don't know.
Agonizing. That's what I'm thinking.
Agonizing.
Yes.
Sure.
So we start off with Captain Marvel agonizing over his dual loyalty, that he wants to be a loyal Kree, and yet it seems that the Kree do not have this thing which Earthmen call conscience. But he and Una both have always had this pang of conscience, and so it's causing this dual loyalty in him.
Now, keep in mind, the Silver Surfer is constantly zipping around the Earth going like, never, nowhere in the galaxy have I ever discovered anyone so wantonly cruel as the people of Earth. And I'm like going, really? Nowhere? Not in the Skrull Empire? Not in the Kree Empire? Not in any of the other empires you've been to? Because a lot of aliens have visited Earth in the course of Marvel Comics, and a lot of them have seemed a lot worse than us. I think you're just having recency bias here, Silver Surfer, and that you're zipping around our planet going like, I've never seen a worse planet. Like, really? I don't think that's true. I think the Kree are worse.
So the current super, basically, of the hotel that Captain Marvel is staying at knocks on the door. We find out that this is the nephew of the guy who was knocked unconscious a few issues ago by the Super Skrull, and he is currently in a coma. But the guy was coming by the room to say, hey, there was something with the phones, yada yada, but you got a call from the Cape. Once again, they keep on referring to it as the Cape, implying that it's Cape Canaveral, even though it very much looks like it's probably the Jet Propulsion Laboratory or someplace out west. But
yeah. I think they think that Cape is just a generic word for NASA base.
Maybe. I don't know. It just seems so weird to me. It always takes me out of the story every time they say that. So he hails a cab. Apparently, it's the same cabbie that drove him to the base last time, where he had the guy drop him off in the middle of nowhere, and he has to give him an excuse that he was told he needs to get more exercise. Page 6, panel 2. Matt.
Yes.
So the colorist had to make a lot of arbitrary decisions in this panel. It is really impossible to tell which lines are lines for levels of rocks versus what might be the horizon versus what might be strips of clouds. And with the way that the car is driving forward, it looks like it's about to fall off into a
chasm.
Yes, exactly. So this I'm going to pin, well, I'm going to go ahead and pin it on Vince Colletta.
Here at Marvel Reread Club, we pin everything on Vince Colletta. So
that's not entirely true, but this one, I'm going to pin it on Vince Colletta. I'm sure that Colan didn't, gave him a lot of confusion to work with, but he really should have done a better job at figuring this stuff out. Anyway, we find
Watch out, you're about to drive into a chasm.
Carol Danvers is still a little bit suspicious of Walter Lawson, and she can't put her finger on why, but she is. We then see that Submariner is swimming along towards New York. He, at this point, thinks that Dorma is dead, and they have a thought balloon as such. We then find out that the reason why Walter Lawson has been called at the last minute to the base is they're doing an experiment, which they don't want anyone to know about in case people might get panicked, because it's not like anything could actually go wrong, right? They are sending up some deadly bacteria into space to see how it's affected by cosmic rays, which just seems like a bad idea, even if everything goes right.
Yeah.
It seems
What
like,
goes up must come down.
right, we just created the Andromeda strain up there or something
Yeah.
like that. But things will not go right. The ship goes up, but then it oddly decides to start screaming back down to Earth and lands right outside New York City. Now, it turns out that Jan Rog is doing an experiment here. He somehow knew about this experiment that the Earthmen were doing and has decided to do an experiment of his own by going ahead and setting all this stuff loose in New York City and seeing how the humans deal with this kind of mega plague. Captain Marvel and his civilian guys, along with Carol Danvers and some other military folks, take a quickly requisitioned plane to New York City. The Submariner has an interaction with a military ship. He learns that this deadly thing is going to be going off and is told, get out of here because it's going to be dangerous. And Submariner heroically decides that he is going to go and try to save New York City. Captain Marvel, however, has gotten his orders, and he is supposed to stop Submariner from saving the city at all costs. So he is against his better judgment, following orders and fighting Submariner. So they get into a...
Now, this is really the first time they've done this in this book, where Captain Marvel has been explicitly ordered to do some sort of genocide against the people of Earth. And I guess genocide is a little extreme. What's the word I'm looking for? Where
weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah. Captain Marvel has been explicitly told to do some sort of mass casualty event against the people of Earth and goes along with it. You know, he is going ahead and fighting Submariner, who's trying to save New York, and Captain Marvel's trying to destroy New York, and he sounds very conflicted in his mind, but his actions are pretty clearly bad. And to a certain extent, I thought this would be the core of the book, of someone who is, you know, on an anti-Earth mission, but comes to love the people of Earth. But there's a couple problems with that. First of all, he's never really come to love the people of Earth. Like, he hasn't fallen in love with anyone. He hasn't fallen in love with Carol Danvers, hasn't taken liking to an orphan boy or anything like that. There's no element of that in the book. And this issue should be our best issue yet in terms of being driven by this intense personal split. But instead, it just feels like, why is he doing this? Like, is he pro-Earth or not? Pick a lane, stick with it, instead of it feeling like, you know, oh, he's really believably, interestingly torn by this.
Yeah. So the two of them fight for many pages. One thing I'll point out on page 18, panel 3, I'm not sure what's going on with Submariner's back muscles there. It really looks odd.
Oh, God. Oh, yes. Okay, I just spotted the right panel. Yes, what on earth is going on with those back muscles on page 18, panel 3? That is something.
Yes. It's hard to describe. It's really lumpy and weird. So in the end, Captain Marvel comes up with a way to make it look from the outside observer that Jan Rog would be like he is doing his best to fulfill the mission, while meanwhile kind of manipulating Submariner into saving the people of New York City. But in the end, he realizes that to anyone observing, it's going to look like he was the hero. Captain Marvel was the hero, and Submariner was the villain, when he knows that really he was the villain and Submariner was actually the hero here.
Yes.
So anyway, that's the irony they try to bring in at the end of it, but it was an okay issue.
Yeah. I mean, that should be a great irony. That should be a sort of irony that fuels great stories, but it's just too blah. It's just too blah to be a great irony. It's too unfocused and unclear and confused and, you know, just not strongly characterized. If this was a more strongly characterized book, if he had more to fight for, if he had more reason to turn against Jan Rog and Una. I mean, if anything, the only person he really loves in this book is Una. And so he should be helping her. Like, if he, had fallen in love with Carol Danvers, if there was something on Earth that was, causing him to split his loyalties, then the book would feel less unfocused and blah and weird and unconvincing.
Yeah. I agree. But, Colin is giving us some decent art here, and Coletta's been doing a better job recently of inking Colin, but this issue seems to be a bit of a backslide to me. on
but
that.
Especially because specifically the worst that Colin and Cleta ever were together were on Submariner's book. So with Submariner here, it's like, oh no, is their worst instincts going to come out? Well, they're certainly doing a much better job here than they did when they were doing Submariner's book together. So, they didn't backslide that much, but, certainly those back muscles on page 18, panel 3 were a sign that something's not working here.
Yeah, there were a number of different things. There was a panel where the kid who is giving the message to Captain Marvel is leaning in the doorway and his eyes are all googly, weird, pointing different directions. Yeah, there's a number of different things like that in here where we're getting a heavier hand from Coletta.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and check my notes. I say inking still not terrible, I say in my notes.
Well, yeah, not great.
Yeah, I say this is really the first time he's bothered by his conscience and growing love of Earth. I feel like that should come sooner and hit more like a thunderbolt. I want there to be something big to make him care, some little kid he has to save or something. Yeah, I say that this is a classic Marvel trope of something is messing with our missile tests. We had this happen a lot back in the early 60s in Marvel Comics. Like, oh, someone is interfering with a missile test.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that. That was something that happened like every other month back in the earlier 60s, isn't it?
Yeah, I say in my notes, Submariner is trying to save everyone and Captain Marvel is half-heartedly following orders to destroy the Earth. Then I say, well, that's certainly ironic, but...
Right, yeah.
I say I like the idea of a tormented hero, but this just isn't working for me. Okay, should we go ahead and move on to another book?
Let's do that. Why don't you do Iron Man?
All right, that was Submariner number 4. Now let's do Iron Man number 4. Iron Man number 4. So unfortunately, the last issue by Johnny Craig, who I've been enjoying on art, that says Unconquered is the Unicorn, has the unicorn in his new, somewhat cooler outfit on the cover, shooting lasers at people while Iron Man bursts through a wall. We go to the inside of the issue. Unconquered is the Unicorn. Stan Lee, editor. Archie Goodwin, writer. Johnny Craig, artist. Sam Rosen, letterer, who says they never play it straight at Mary Marvel. I felt like in the last issue, Happy was already cured of being the freak and sent home at the end, but we've seemingly gone back in time a little bit here and are seeing Tony Stark cure Happy of being the freak. We see, as I always like, a bunch of a big transformation on one page of, gradually morphing face, while Pepper is in the background praying for everything to work out okay. But then it's, again, this is something where it should be cool and it's sort of cool and sort of just confusing how then we cut to someone else who is laying on a table being shot through with beams, but this is over behind the Iron Curtain and this is the Unicorn. So the Unicorn was never, if I remember correctly, super strong before.
No, I don't think so.
Now he's being subjected to hyperactivator beams and he is being made big and strong and seemingly like 3 heads taller than the scientists. He can then crush steel girders, so he's super strong. And they give him a new unicorn outfit. He says, the bulk, the clumsiness are gone. The old suit had to be that way to provide adequate protection for you. With your newly instilled strength, there are no such limitations. He can fly now as well. So he shoots a hole in the ceiling, goes flying out.
Well, they make it clear that whatever they just did to him it makes him strong and invulnerable, but it's going to burn through his body very quickly. And so he doesn't have that long to live in this superpowered form.
Yeah. So then Tony says goodbye to Pepper and Happy again. Again, I feel like we already saw that last issue. He is hearing reports on the TV about an unprecedented array of scientific talent from almost every nation on Earth who are going to be gathering at the upcoming Congress of Scientific Achievement. Both Tony and Unicorn are seeing the same news report about this and both decide that's where they want to be. Now, do they still have things like this today? I feel like they were constantly doing stuff like this in the 60s. We must bring all the world's scientists together for the purpose of good. Do they still do that?
I think they just do that with Richie Riches these days. I mean,
Yeah.
I kept on thinking that this is like Davos for scientists. But these days, no, they just basically have like incredibly rich and powerful people come together and do this, not like scientists who want to share their science with each other.
Yeah. I mean, I guess back in the day, you sort of had to do this because, there was sort of this iron curtain between half the scientists in the world and the other half. And, you had to have like special get-togethers, whereas these days, everybody's just on the internet, I guess. But anyway, They're all meeting at the Congress of Scientific Achievement. The unicorn decides that's where he wants to be. He comes, he crashes through the ceiling. He starts shooting everybody with his little unicorn beams. He's also bulletproof. This guy is really something at this point. I saw you pointed out online that at one point he's saying, thankfully, that was a low intensity power burst. You'll be out of commission, but not permanently. But it really looks like he has just disintegrated them.
Yeah, they look like they are being turned into ash.
Yes, like the end of Infinity War or something. Unfortunately, the unicorn ends up standing on top of Tony's attaché case and keeps zapping him every time that he tries to get it. But somehow he finally manages to get it away, goes behind a little pile of rubble and changes into Iron Man. They fight for several pages. It's amazing, given how incredibly effective the unicorn has been. It's sort of amazing that Iron Man is able to do anything. But he eventually rips his belt off of him and throws it over a cliff. Somehow they ended up on top of a cliff here. And then the unicorn decides to dive after the cliff, although I guess only the belt can make him fly. So
yeah, I'm not sure. The jets are in his boots, but yeah, presumably the belt might be where the controls are. I was a little unclear on that.
Well, yeah, Tony is pretty baffled, too. He's like, unicorn, you're mad. What are you doing? The belt's just a twisted mass of metal now. Useless, utterly useless. I've got to stop him. Can't tell if his flight rockets are working. They may have depended on the belt also. So he's just as confused as you and me and possibly Archie Goodwin and Johnny Craig all are about this. But Iron Man's like, oh, well, he went off the cliff. And then I guess he flies down and tries to find him and can't find any trace of him, of course. So then Iron Man's like, okay, going home. So much for Johnny Craig on this book. So much for that unicorn storyline, which was turns out to be a one-issue inconsequential storyline. So much for that. And we have an adequate but not great issue of Iron Man in which, they certainly made the unicorn a much cooler, more effective villain who will sustain many more years of appearances in this book. But other than that, a pretty uninteresting issue of Iron Man. What did you have to say, Steve?
The one thing I want to point out, one thing I want to make clear is the reason that the unicorn wanted to show up at the scientific conference was specifically to force one of the scientists into fixing his situation so that he could remain this superpowered and not burn through his life force as quickly. That was his motivation for being there in the first place. In the end, he was not able to do so, and so not only are we not sure if he plunged into the lake and drowned, but we're also not sure if he will live very long with his superpowers if he didn't die in the lake. So that's the one thing I wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
I also have enjoyed Johnny Craig's tenure on this book. Who takes over next? I haven't.
Tuska.
Interesting.
So
okay.
I say at the end of my notes, not great issue, pretty good art, not much to the story. Tuska takes over as penciler next issue, and Craig will be missed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have enjoyed his brief tenure on this book, and I like that the unicorn gets something that is closer to what his modern day, or what I think of as modern day, his 80s uniform looks like. Because, I thought he looked pretty cool when he would show up in stories in the 80s. And this is much closer to that look at this point. So I'm happy to see that.
All right, let's go and move on to the Avengers. So I just said Iron Man, so you do the Avengers.
So the Avengers, Mayhem over Manhattan, and mayhem is inexplicably in quotes, and we see the
Avengers mayhem unquote over Manhattan, yes. Saying sarcastically.
And we see the Avengers fighting the Masters of Evil on the cover, and it is a well-penciled cover. I'm not very happy with how it's inked. It has a little bit of I don't know. It's hard to describe what I dislike about it, but the penciling is quite good. So, The Mighty Avengers, Mayhem over Manhattan, Stan Lee editor, Roy Thomas writer, John Buscema artist, inked by George Klein, who I think that's a new name for us, isn't it?
I think so.
Yes. Lettered by Sam Rosen. With a Lilton lineup like that, Pilgrim, you know you've got another Marvel masterwork on your hands.
Yeah, so this is the first we've seen of George Klein, I think, and I'm a big fan of the inks on this issue. I don't know if he inked the cover. I didn't really have much issues with the inks on the cover. It sounds like you did. But what did you think of the inks on the inside? I was a big fan.
I thought it was good. It didn't jump out at me as particularly great or particularly bad. Some people might argue that that's what you want from an inker, somebody who can blend in with whatever the penciler is doing.
Yeah.
One thing I do wonder about is the zipatone, also known in various generations as Ben-Day dots or Letretone, on the splash page. I don't think they made zipatone sheets as big as they did comic book art these days. So I'm kind of wondering to some extent how it is that they're able to get this smooth transition of zipatone from the bottom of the page to the top of the page. I'm trying to figure out whether maybe there's some point in there where it just switches to something else and they were able to piece things together in one way or another. But that's one thing just for an inside baseball sort of thing that I'm left a little bit curious about. What did you think of this ship on the splash page here?
I like it. I think Buscema Tech is getting better and better, and I like this very round, bulbous sort of ship that the Crimson Cow has here on page 1.
Yeah, I really like it too. It's this really weird looking thing, and it's one thing for you to be able to draw this in a drawing, but it's another to then be like, oh, okay, so here's this weird bulbous looking ship. Now I'm going to need to be able to show it from this angle and that angle, and what does it look like when people are disembarking from it, and all sorts of stuff. And John Buscema just has it down. I'm a pretty big fan. So last issue, the Masters of Evil had subdued the Avengers. It looks like the 3 male Avengers are all being kept in line by a bunch of lasers that will fry them if they try to get up, and they're unconscious anyway. The Wasp, meanwhile, is in just like a little glass jar. So
yes.
because I guess that does make sense. She would just be able to fly between the lasers. So the ship ends up descending into an abandoned lot where there is a false ground, and it is able to go through into a hatch. Page 4, panel 2 is where we get to see, as I was talking about, the Masters of Evil disembarking from the ship. And again, just as really well thought out and well designed and well planned by John Buscema. So the Masters of Evil still think that they're working for Jarvis, but it then turns out that no, they are not. They are working for Ultron 5. And they are rather torn about this whole turn of events. They did not realize that they were working for a robot, and they're not very happy about it. But
yeah, so you recall at the end of last issue, Ultron and Jarvis put on a little play for everyone where they were like, yes, the Crimson Cow you've been working for is me, a robot named Ultron 5. I think he was just Ultron in that one. Or no, was he even named last issue? I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
And then it's like, it was me, a robot you were working for, but the robot was really working for another Crimson Cow, and then another Crimson Cow came up, and he took off his stuff. It's like, yes, I'm really the one in charge. Jarvis. And it's like, wait, Jarvis is not just doing this to help his mom. He's actually been running the whole thing and putting on a little show before where Jarvis was seemingly cowering in front of the Crimson Cow, and now the Crimson Cow was seemingly cowering in front of Jarvis. Well, it turns out that both of these were just putting on plays, and that now it turns out that no. Jarvis was actually pretty sympathetic this whole time. Yes, he wasn't entirely hypnotized. He really did betray the Avengers to help his sick mom, but was certainly hypnotized when he was pretending that he was running the whole thing. To what end? To what avail? Who are they trying to fool here? Why would they need to put on that little play? I have no idea. But it seems like this is an example of Roy Thomas sort of regretting what he did last issue in terms of having Jarvis turn out to be such a baddie. It's a very bizarre turn of events. But the good news is we got Ultron out of it, who looks very cool. It's the first time we see him out of his Crimson Cow outfit, which will never be seen again. And he is a cool looking robot dude. They're going to get a lot of good use out of this character over the years. I like the name Ultron 5. I think that's kind of cool. Now, when I was growing up, I read about Ultron 6 and Ultron 7 and Ultron 8. And I was always like, wow, there must have been a lot of Avengers comics where they covered the development of Ultron 1 to Ultron 5. And this must have been, so many Avengers storylines I still need to read. I need to read all the storylines where we moved all the way up from Ultron 1 to Ultron 8. And I did not realize that we started with Ultron 5. Later, they will explain what happened to Ultrons 1 through 4. But in this issue, it is not explained.
Yeah, having never read these before, and, just as you were describing growing up reading those Avengers comics, I have been rather confused with what we're seeing here, and that we haven't yet seen anything with this being a result of experiments by Henry Pym. We haven't seen anything with any kind of like brain engrams from, is it from Pym? That's right. Something like that.
No, once you get the Vision involved, anyway, it's a whole thing.
Right. And so we haven't gotten any of that. I've also seen some images of an old Ultron, and this might be in some of the flashbacks that we end up seeing from the earlier versions. But I thought that the first one we saw was like a little like trash can on tank treads.
Yeah.
That I'm guessing that is what we're going to see in a flashback is like Ultron 1.
Yes, in a couple of issues, yes.
Okay. So anyway, Ultron gives orders for Jarvis to be disposed of. The Melter kind of botches the job. Jarvis is able to, against all odds, survive being buried under a pile of bricks. He's able to hobble his way back to Avengers Mansion, where the Black Knight finds him and is told, and I guess I haven't mentioned this before, that the Avengers are essentially inside a hydrogen bomb, which the Masters of Evil are going to use to extort the city. Jarvis is able to communicate this to Black Knight, who then heads off to try and save the day. He ends up rescuing the Avengers from where they're trapped inside the H-bomb, and they get into a fight. One thing I'm going to point out, on page 15, panel 4, Radioactive Man, I'm not buying his dialogue here. It says, it's not bad enough that Jungle Come Lately knocks us around, but if he's gonna start making with social comments as well, ... He's a Chinese scientist. And so I'm not looking for offensive-sounding racist Chinese pidgin English or anything like that, but I would expect more formal English.
Yes.
Something that doesn't sound like this person has just been living as a Joe Schlub in the USA for his entire life, but somebody who did learn English as a second language and knows it as a more formal sort of way. But
yeah, with the drop G, it sounds very slangy. It doesn't sound like a non-native English speaker.
Yes. So the fight continues. Hawkeye ends up making himself a bow and arrow out of, what is it? A piston, a crowbar, and a hunk of wire, which
Yes.
I don't buy.
No.
Let's see. So they continue fighting, fight, all sorts of fighting all the way through. Eventually, they dismantle the bomb, and they're heading back to Avengers Mansion, and Jarvis, explains to them that he needed money for his mother's surgery. Of course, why he didn't just approach the Avengers and say, I have this big problem, and could I please have an advance on my salary or something like that? I don't know. But
yes, Tony Stark, my actual boss, Tony Stark. Can I have some money to cure my sick mother, please? We have an absolutely terrible healthcare system here in America. Can I please do a little one-man GoFundMe here? It would seem to make more sense. But instead, he goes straight to Ultron to ask for money. And the Avengers are like, okay. It's like, you mean you'd give me a second chance? Why not? You may have betrayed us, but then you risked your life for us. If that doesn't square accounts, then we're not worthy of the name Avengers. I'm sorry. If this happened to me, I would fire his ass.
You'd be like, you have very poor judgment. Again, we are the good guys. We are superheroes, and we've got a really, really, really rich patron. Why didn't you come to us first rather than being like, I guess I'm just going to sell out the Avengers because, they'll probably win in the end. So what's it actually going to hurt?
Yes.
In the end, Ultron is left without his new Masters of Evil, and he is soliloquizing. I will use that word this time. He is soliloquizing about his evil intentions. You shall all die by the hand of Ultron 5. So yeah, I have been pretty surprised by how Ultron has been introduced in these couple of issues. I will be interested to see how they fill in the gaps.
Yeah, there's still a lot to explain about who Ultron is, but all we know right now is he looks really cool, and he's going to continue to be a cool-looking dude for a long time. I say in my notes, we find out that Crimson Cow was Ultron and not Jarvis all along, so why the deception? Quote, because it served my purposes, and, more importantly, because it amused me to do so. And then I go, okay, that's weird, but I kind of dig that Ultron is such a weird guy, and that's something that will continue on through James Spader's playing Ultron in the second Avengers movie, is that he will continue to be sort of a weird guy with bizarre motivations.
I remember when they announced that they were casting him as Ultron, I was like, James Spader always just seems sexually inappropriate in every role he's ever been in. You know, are his power blasts going to be like unwelcome back rubs or something like that? There's one point in the big fight where T'Challa says, we may never look at anything again, my friend, if we don't quickly act. And Hawkeye says, the Panther's not just whistling a Zulu war chant, tall socks. Which, I mean, okay, I grant them that whistling Dixie would definitely be a,
not great.
Exactly, not great. I'm not sure how this works as a replacement. It's probably better than the original, but also on that same panel, Giant Man, after he's gotten whammied by the claw, is saying after that blast that Sonic Claw dished out, he's referring to him as Sonic Claw, I may never look at another Mixmaster.
Yeah. I think a Mixmaster was like a type of Cuisinart or something that would just, shake up your counter. And so, I'm just really shooken up.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's just his little horn thing that's on the end of his hand looks like a blender.
Oh, well, no, I think it just shakes you up like a blender. I think it just whirls you around and shakes you up and like a blender would.
All right, sure. We'll go with that. Anyway, that's all I had to say about this issue, other than just overall, I have enjoyed this story.
Yeah, it's been good. I say at the end, Masters of Evil accidentally let Jarvis get away, and apparently they just forgot to deal with Black Knight in the last issue. And they're like, oh, they forgot to deal with me. And I go, what screw-ups? I say, better intro of Ultron than last issue. Great new villain. Jarvis triple cross is dizzying, but I guess it's fun. Fun Avengers Masters of Evil battle. I always will enjoy the Avengers fighting the Masters of Evil. Of course, John Buscema will be back on the book 20 years later, and they'll have an absolutely fantastic Avengers Master of Evil fight in the Under Siege storyline in, almost exactly 20 years later in this book. But here we have another great Avengers Masters of Evil fight. Always good stuff.
Yep.
All right, should we jump to our last book of the month, a massively oversized book?
Let's go ahead and do it.
All right, let's do The Silver Surfer, #1. The Origin of the Silver Surfer, Sentinel of the Spaceways, big premiere issue, an all-new book-length Marvel epic. And we have on the cover just Silver Surfer flying straight towards us, seemingly leaving Earth, but we all know that he's about to go boing, and he's about to bounce off the barrier that is going to withstrain isn't a word, I think.
Restrain?
Restrain or... I don't know what the width was. I don't know where I'm getting width from. And as always, they sort of go back and forth about whether Silver Surfer is wearing underwear or not, or whether those are just creases in his silver. I always prefer the Silver Surfer not wearing underwear and just, being a generally genitalless guy flying around in his silver suit. We go ahead and jump into the issue. The Origin of the Silver Surfer, one of Comicdom's greatest collaborations, proudly presented by Stan the Man Lee and John Blood and Guts Buscema. That's new.
That is new.
Then we have embellishment Joe Sinnott, lettering Sam Rosen. So this may be the first time we've seen Sinnott and Buscema, and I think it looks absolutely gorgeous, as you would expect. One of Marvel's best pencilers and Marvel's best inker working together, and really nice combo. It says, high o'er the roof of the world he soars, free and unfettered as the roaring wind itself. Behold, the skyborn spanner of a trillion galaxies, the restless, streaking stranger from the farthest reach of space, this glittering, gleaming seeker of truth, whom men shall call forevermore the Silver Surfer. We begin as Silver Surfer can't go off into space, but United States space capsules can, but then one lands in the ocean and seemingly fails to deploy its parachute and crashes all the way to the bottom of the ocean, where Silver Surfer probably shouldn't free the guy from the space shuttle on the bottom of the ocean, should probably bring the whole capsule back to the surface, but he doesn't. Frees him down. I guess he's wearing breathing apparatus, so I guess it's fine. Rescues the guy, puts him on the deck of an aircraft carrier, which Buscema does a great job drawing. But, of course, the Americans are like, oh, we don't trust you. We're going to fire our guns and missiles and whatever else at you. Silver Surfer has to get away. Then it has Silver Surfer flying through the air over Moscow, and they're all shooting at him. And then he's flying through the air over Peiping, Peiping. We used to Americanize the name of China's capital as Peking, and then eventually we decided to Americanize it in a more authentic way as Beijing. But this seems to be a little brief period in between where it was known as Peiping.
Yeah.
You notice that?
I did notice that.
But once again, you have the Russian going, he is headed towards Peiping. We shall allow our accursed Oriental comrades to deal with him. So again, Marvel is sort of grappling with the Sino-Soviet split here. And it's going like, well, they're still buddies, but they're accursed buddies. They can't stand each other, but they're still partners. So then Silver Surfer at this point is going around the Earth, wondering why everybody sucks so bad, and suddenly remembers growing up. He remembers growing up on the planet Zenla. And we get lots of Yosemite here as we get this very scientific, futuristic planet where it turns out everyone is bald. Silver Surfer didn't just lose his hair to become the Silver Surfer. He was already bald. And
well, all male people are bald.
Yes, Zenlavians.
Women seem to have a nice head of hair.
Yes, all male Zenlavians are bald. So the big problem with this issue, one of the big problems with this issue, is that we have a main feature and a backup story that are very, very similar, and they both involve big, bald, cosmic Kirby creatures who then flash back to their origin, in which they were already bald in their origin, and they were already living on a super techno-advanced planet. Anyway, we'll get to that. So then he's going around Zenla. He feels like this is one of those classic sci-fi tropes where we defeat war and disease, and now we've lost our will to live. We've lost the thing that used to drive us. And we never even bother with space travel anymore. We still have these space things we have, but we never do anything with them. Meanwhile, the Silver Surfer, while he's flashing back to all this, ends his flashback and is like, oh, wait, here I am zipping around the Himalayas, and there are a bunch of Yeti, the so-called abominable snowmen of earthly legend. Yetis, the wild, savage snow dwellers. They think me an enemy. They rush to attack without question or pause. And suddenly, it truly seems as if John Buscema just got bored here. And it's like, this is a bunch of talking here. Let's go ahead and have Silver Surfer suddenly get in a bunch of fight with Yetis who never show up before or since in Marvel Comics, as far as I'm aware.
I'm sure that a Yeti has to have shown up at some point in the Marvel Universe in the intervening, how many decades?
I guess there was a Hulk story early on where he was fighting Chinese soldiers in Tibet, and I remember he dressed up as an abominable snowman.
Right.
I don't remember whether there actually were any in that story, but Silver Surfer, his flashbacks are going all out of order here. He's still not finished his flashback about life on Zenla, but then he goes ahead and has a bunch of other flashbacks to stuff that's happened to him here on Earth with the Hulk and Doctor Doom. He then finds an ancient ruin up there in the Himalayas where you have, this is the sort of thing that's classic Kirby. Kirby loves, sort of ancient, ruined, advanced technological cities in remote places. But for some reason, he's going around here, and then he continues his flashback to life on Zenla with his girlfriend, Shalabal. So we're going to have a huge problem in this book that does not rear its head.
Yes, we will.
In this issue. In this issue, I think we are still assuming that this is all hundreds of years ago.
Right.
Hundreds of years ago. Here was Norin Rad, that's his name, here on Zenla. Norin Rad and his girlfriend Shalabal on Zenla, and they're like, too long have I sensed the hunger gnawing at your breast, a hunger for that which I can never give you. For a prize can be found nowhere lest you journey beyond the farthest star. So this is interesting in that he's discontent. He's a discontent hero here. I talk about in my writing advice, you have, a long-standing personal problem. So the problem is that he's discontent. You have an intimidating opportunity. And so you get something where it seems like the worst thing that could happen to the hero. Galactus shows up to eat his planet, but it's the one thing that he's always needed. It's the one thing that this is the only solution to his problem. Ironically, the worst thing that could ever happen to him is the one thing he needs. They go back and forth forever. And then this issue takes a long time to get going. Essentially, he's just having this conversation with Shalabal from page 17 to page 29 when Galactus finally shows up. Galactus, colored oddly, as he often is in these early comics. He always seems to be colored differently. Galactus shows up, says, I'm here to eat your planet. They try to send weapons against Galactus. They basically just destroy their own planet instead of affecting Galactus at all. That's not a good idea. But then Nornrad gets an idea. He goes to Galactus and he says, I am willing to be your herald in return for you not eating the planet. And Galactus says, think, Nornrad, consider well what you have offered. He who assumes the mantle of herald to Galactus shall do so forevermore. He says, if such be my destiny, willingly do I accept it. My fate is of little consequence. If it can save the world that gave me birth, mighty Galactus, do what spares Zenla, and I am ever yours to command. Not actually true, as we will find out. He will stand up to Galactus when Galactus tries to eat the Earth. We then get a beautiful several pages on pages 31, 32, and 33 of Galactus transforming Nornrad into the Silver Surfer. Really legendary page on page 33 of a big splash page of Galactus's hand over the Surfer's tortured, racked body.
Yeah, that really is just a spectacular page.
Oh, yes, and been homaged many times. So then Surfer goes to Shalabal, says, sorry, baby, I gotta go. I got a girl in every port. I'm a traveling man, made a lot of stops all over the world.
My love, my life, my lady is the sea.
Yes. My life, my love, my lady is the sea. Yes. He then continues his flashbacks to when Galactus is colored even differently in the flashbacks. And he remembers standing up for the Earth and defying Galactus in order to save the Earth in the Fantastic Four, and then getting stuck here on Earth. And then we end on page 38 of this issue with him going, now here I stand, alone and forsaken upon this hostile world, I who have crested the waves of infinity, exiled forever upon this lonely sphere. But time is long and fate is fickle, my destiny still lies before me, and where it beckons, there shall soar the Silver Surfer. Next issue, when lands the saucer. So I think this is a great issue. I think that right now, it's not causing any problems, because right now, we're assuming that all this stuff happened hundreds of years ago. Next issue, I think, it will suddenly cause problems, and that he finally gets back in touch with Shalabal, who is still young and hot. And
yeah,
it's like, wait, I thought all this happened hundreds of years ago. I thought that he found hundreds of planets for Galactus. Now it seems like all this happened just a couple years ago. Totally unclear in this issue that all this happened just a couple years ago, and that he was seemingly not herald for very long. But for this issue, for now, this is great.
Yeah, I have the exact same feeling that the way it is right now, I read this as that was eons ago. Like he has been doing this for millennia at this point, and that it was finally when they got to Earth that he rebelled. But yeah, once again, if Shalabal is still an attractive younger woman, then yeah, what's he been doing this for? 6 months? 2 years?
Let's make it very clear. Here at Marvel Reread Club, we regard older women as unattractive. So let's just...
Yes.
I just think we were implying that, but we weren't outright saying it. We should state that outright. No, we're both married to older women. We find older women very attractive. But yes, seemingly, let's put it this way. She ain't white-haired next time we see her.
Right.
So, either they live for a very long time. But I mean, again, they're sort of implying that, like, we haven't been away from each other that long when she comes back into the book, which just makes everything go wonky. Obviously, the word is that Kirby really didn't want this, that Kirby hated this issue, that Kirby wanted the Silver Surfer to be a being of pure energy who was created by Galactus, and not someone who was originally human who became a herald of Galactus. But I like it. Obviously, by the time I started reading comics, the whole Nornrad Zenla thing was well established, and I always liked it. I like the idea of a human-type person on a human-type planet who is going to be destroyed, who has always wished he could roam the spaceways, and then realizes, no, I have to give up on my lady love. I have to give up on my planet, and I'm going to come up with this deal, this devil's bargain, to become the Herald of Galactus in order to save my planet. And I think it's really great. I think it's
well, and not just his planet, but the implication here is that his whole purpose is going to be to try to find planets that have life but not sentient life. And that's the reason why he is of use to Galactus, is that he can then be doing this sort of vetting of planets that Galactus himself would not have the time and energy to do. Yes. So yeah, it's even more heroic than just saving his own world, but it's going to be saving countless other worlds as well. Yeah, I really enjoyed it at this point, and yeah, I'm wondering how long it goes before they're like, oh, millions of years ago? No, that was like 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's weird. I say in my notes, his own double-sized book. Why no Kirby? Question mark, question mark. Has this mystery ever been answered? Is it because he didn't want Silver Surfer to have a human-like origin, but Stan Lee did? Question mark. I don't know. I say Silver Surfer waxes existential, then remembers his own planet's son-in-law. And really, it can't be overstated just how poetic this book is. It's why I was reading little chunks of dialogue before. I really think Stan Lee is really killing it in this book. And indeed, it was rumored, at least when we were kids, that the reason why Silver Surfer didn't have his own book until like 1988 or so was that Stan Lee always wanted to script anything that Silver Surfer was in. And indeed, even when Mobius did a 2-issue Silver Surfer storyline, Stan Lee stepped in to script it, even though he'd been retired for many years by that point. I think if you were to have asked Stan Lee near the end of his life recently, when he died back in 2020, or 2019, I guess, if you were to ask him what was the best book you ever wrote, I think that Silver Surfer #1, or around about this era, would have been on his list. I think he is especially proud of his poetic dialogue in this issue, and I think it's really nice.
Yeah, I have one panel clipped here where he is saying, and yet, in their uncontrollable insanity, in their unforgivable blindness, they seek to destroy this shining jewel, this softly spinning gem, this tiny blessed sphere which men call Earth. And
yes.
We are still going about that today.
Yes.
I laugh so I don't cry. Anyway, yes, this is good. As I said, I'm going to have a big problem with it when they mess with the timeline.
Yes. I say that it's going to be a big problem, and then I go, but we can't blame this issue. Great issue. Not what Kirby wanted, but an excellent issue that redefines character and sets up several great series to come. Gorgeous penciling and inking. Absolutely gorgeous work from Buscema and Sinnott here. I think that it's an embarrassment of riches to have Sinnott inking Buscema.
Yes. So we've also got a backup feature in here. We've already gone however many, 36 pages, and we now have another whole story back here.
38 pages we've already had. So then we have a massive backup story in the back of, after that 38-page story, The Wonder of the Watcher, a Marvel cameo classic recreated by Stan Lee and Gene Colan, embellished by Sid Shores, lettered by Artie Simek. So this is the first time we've had Sid Shores inking Gene Colan, which I think works. I think that, yes?
I know, I agree. I think that Sid Shores is a much better match for Gene Colan than he is for Kirby.
Yes. Sid Shores can be sort of a splotchy inker, and Gene Colan is a very loose penciler, and I think the splotchiness and the looseness work well together. We begin with the Watcher is watching a patient on an operating table, and they're like, oh, we can't save him, and then the Watcher thinks, I could have gotten in there and saved him, but I'm not going to do it, because I'm just a Watcher, and it's good to see, for once, the Watcher actually failing to save someone, which he rarely does. We then cut to a big splash page on page 3 of the Watcher, almost giving us an upskirt shot as he is bestride the moon. And he's got a very short miniskirt, and he's walking almost over our heads. And oh boy, let's hope that the wind doesn't shift. So then the Watcher is explaining that he is pledged to not interfere, and we get a recap of the Watcher's origin. So last time we saw the Watcher's origin, it was back when he had his own backup feature in the back of Iron Man, in the back of Tales of Suspense, back before Captain America had his own comic there. And I think it was written and penciled by Larry Lieber last we saw it. Well, now we get Stan Lee and Gene Colan's version. And I think they do a nice job recreating this story. Once again, very similar to the front half of the book. You've got a very powerful, very advanced civilization many hundreds of years ago that is, turned their planet into a technological marvel, and all the men are bald. Seems to be an all-male world in which all the men are bald. And once again, they are like, oh, what do we do to, relieve ourselves of the boredom? They're like, okay, let's try to go to another civilization. We'll give them nuclear power, and they'll just use it to create energy that's too cheap to meter. That's all any civilization has ever done with nukes, right? And that's what they think is going to happen. Good luck with that. They go ahead and say, yes, we'll give you all this nuke stuff, and then we'll take off and go keep exploring the galaxy, traveling at the speed of thought, then leave you back in charge of the nukes. Well, it turns out, as soon as they go, one of the aliens says, let others use the atom for the good of their fellow beings. In my hands, it means power absolute. I will build weapons of war such as none have ever dared imagine. And they end up nuking the entire planet to death. The Watchers then come back, and they're like, not a trace of civilization, nothing but carnage and rubble. I hear a voice from behind those rocks. And then one of the aliens says, may you and your race be cursed till the end of all your days. You are to blame. You did this to us. We would still be living in peace had you not brought your deadly secret of atomic energy before we were ready for it. So then the Watchers decide, okay, from now on, we are not helping anybody ever, no matter what. Which I think this is still a strong origin. I liked it when it first appeared in Tales of Suspense. I like it again here. I think that, it's somewhat better here because Gene Colan is a better penciler than Ray Lieber was. And Sid Shores is doing, I think, a really nice job on the inking. So I'm glad to have the Watcher's origin retold. And it says, beginning anew, next issue, Tales of the Watcher. And I think it's fun to have this backup. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see where they go with it. As it is so far, we've pretty much gotten a repeat of what we'd gotten in the original story. But yeah, it's well drawn. I will point out that the alien race who received the nuclear secrets not only destroyed their own planet, but also there was another planet in their solar system that also had a more advanced civilization, and they went and nuked them too. So it was not just themselves, but others as well. It was fun. Having read the original, I'm mainly interested to see where they go with it.
Yeah, I say in my notes, I'm ready to be done with this issue, but here we go again. We launch into the second story. I say, fascinating art combo, roughest inker on sketchiest penciler, and I think that works well. Yeah, I point out that Colan and Shores do a good job retelling the story, expanding it from a 6-page story to a 13-page story with bigger panels, which is, I think it's, good to let the story expand.
Good.
Okay.
Well, I look forward to more from both the front half and the back half of this book.
Yes.
All right. So let's go ahead and say goodbye to our listeners. Thank you, everybody, for listening, as always. If you have not done so already, please leave us a 5-star rating and or a review on your podcatcher of choice. That always helps other people find it. And yeah, I guess that's just about it. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I gotta say, we're not big fans of our most recent review. We love you guys, and thank you for leaving a 5-star review. But the review is like, it sucks. Just kidding. And that's been like our top review for a long time. And we're like, we don't like reading that our podcast sucks. We understand that, hey, it's the internet. We're all having fun. We're all joshing. We're all joking around. And thank you for leaving that review, if only it was not our most recent review for the last several months. So please, someone, leave us a new review where you don't kid around and you just say how great we are, which is what all we want to read.
Yes.
That would be great. Anyway, so this was a good 4 comics. Good because we got a huge amount of John Buscema doing Avengers and Silver Surfer. It's interesting that if John Buscema is capable of turning out this many comics, why has he not been doing more before now? If he's capable of doing essentially 3 issues in a month, single length and double length issue, then why hasn't he been doing as much as, say, Colan has been doing? But hey, I can't complain now. We've got it now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Sorry it took us quite some time to get through August of 1968. I think we're going to take another week off here, and then we will be back with September 1968, where there will be a bunch more great issues.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care, and as always, stay safe out there.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, we now have a Patreon where you can show your appreciation. If you've got a few bucks, head over to patreon.marvelrereadclub.com to support us. Also, you can still rate and review us at your podcatcher of choice, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. You can find us online at marvelrereadclub.com, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. See you next time.